Hey friends, welcome back. This is part two of my two-part series with Charity Navigator. If you missed part one, be sure to check that out on my channel. And I hope you enjoy this. I know that I did. So I feel like if you are working for, or if you've started a nonprofit organization in the United States, the odds are pretty decent that you have heard of Charity Navigator. Charity Navigator is this organization. They have a website where they are evaluating nonprofits' effectiveness and impact. And it's a great resource for people who are considering where to donate their money, but maybe they're overwhelmed by all of the choices out there, or they don't know how to find organizations or causes that match what they're interested in. So they'll go to Charity Navigator and they can either search for a charity that they care about or see all of the charities in a particular category and then see how they are evaluated. So all of that is to say, we're going to have a great conversation with one of the leaders over at Charity Navigator today on how you can make sure that you get a great score and super impress those donors. But before we get into that, I just want to welcome you back to my channel. If we haven't met before, I'm Amber Melanie Smith. I'm a nonprofit founder and executive director. I make these videos here on YouTube all about various things related to nonprofits and creating an impact in the world, whether that's through social enterprise or the nonprofit structure itself, or volunteering or leadership, or any number of other ways you can make a difference in the world. As always, I hope this video is helpful to you. I have a website, founderedfulltime.com, where I have some online trainings for nonprofit leaders looking for that extra help to get started. So please check that out too. All right, without further ado, let's get into this. Each year, Charity Navigator gives almost 200,000 nonprofit organizations a score based on factors like impact or transparency. Every year, almost 12 million people visit their site looking for organizations that they might be considering supporting with a donation. How can you make sure that your organization gets a good score on Charity Navigator? That's what we're going to talk about today with my special guest, Chief Program Officer Laura Andes with Charity Navigator. Hi, Laura.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Okay, so Laura, before we get into some of these really important questions for organizations, let's hear a little bit more about you. Who are you? What do you do at Charity Navigator? And how's it related to what we're talking about today?
So as Chief Program Officer, my job is to come up with the methodology that we rate charities, what we should add, how can we refine it, and then to oversee the actual rating of the charities that make it on our website.
So I have the sense that a lot of organizations, a lot of people who might be watching my videos probably already know what Charity Navigator is. And if they don't, I just explained it to those folks who weren't aware of you all before. But I'd like to hear a little bit more about your rating system and how you're scoring these organizations and what does it mean to get a good rating?
Yeah, so we have a 4-beacon system that we think really comprehensively rates a nonprofit on their effectiveness. So we've got 4 beacons: impact and results, leadership and adaptability, accountability and finance, and culture and community. And we think together that just is a really great holistic way for a donor to look at an overall nonprofit. Those roll up to a 0 to 4-star score. 3 and 4-star, we consider the highest performing charities. These are the ones that are following best practices and doing the best on our methodology. So we give them a give with confidence rating. So as a charity, you really want to be a 3 or 4-star rated charity.
So obviously everyone wants gold stars and to have a great rating and to have their organization look great on a site like yours, especially because it's getting so much traffic and visibility. But I want to go a little bit further into this and ask, why is it important at all to have a good rating or a high score on Charity Navigator? What does it mean to the people visiting your site and to donors who might be looking for a place to give their money?
I like to put myself in the shoes of the donor. I think there's so many well-intentioned people who want to do the right thing and they just get overwhelmed by choices. If you go and Google homeless shelter, probably in your area, you'll get 30 charities. And how do you know?
Yeah.
And so our site is a place where they can go. They can see that we have done the due diligence. We have kind of helped narrow down that choice for them. And I think for a charity, that's really, really powerful. It's a differentiator. It's something that they can say, we have the best practices. We have, the metrics that are in line with high performers. We're a high performing charity. And, you can feel like when you give us your resources, we're trustworthy and we're going to steward them in the best way we can. And we're going to be impactful. So I think it's just a really powerful way for nonprofits to show to a donor and signal that, we're different, we're better than your peers. And, here we've got this verification to prove it.
Yeah, I like that. It's kind of like having a third party, a neutral third party assess your performance and give you that indicator. Like an audit, though, that is a scary word we sometimes don't like to use in the nonprofit world. So all of this can really help an organization build trust, which I've said in so many other videos is a really critical component to receiving donations, receiving support. I mean, someone's unlikely to just give a random nonprofit they've never heard of, don't know anything about, their money off the street. It takes trust, a relationship, knowledge, etc. So I really appreciate, what you all are trying to do and helping make that more visible to donors. You mentioned earlier there were 4 categories of how these organizations are scored. And I kind of want to go a little bit deeper into those with you to help my viewers understand each one. So can you talk us through those?
I'd love to. So I think a lot of people who are familiar with Charity Navigator might say, oh, you just rate on finance and accountability. And that is actually one piece of a larger system that we really think is a holistic look at a nonprofit. I worked at nonprofits my entire career, and I can tell you it's so much more than just finance and accountability. And I'm super excited that our system kind of looks at all of those different components. So I'm going to walk through each one of them one by one and sort of give you the overview of what's included.
All right, let's do it.
Let's start with impact and results. This is our newest beacon, and it's actually, in my mind, the most important because this is supposed to measure, is the nonprofit actually doing what they set out to do? And are they doing it efficiently? So we are just at the beginning stages of this. We only have about 1,000 ratings. And what we do is we come up with a methodology based on the programs that a program a nonprofit is running, and we then try to calculate impact in a very quick and easy way. We try to be directionally correct on the impact, whether or not they're impactful or not. And then we also look at and see if they're efficient as well. And so that gives a overall score on impact. And if you want to get a score right now, there's limited eligibility because we're building out methodologies by program area. But if you are eligible, you can log on to our portal and it will tell you, give us this number and that number. And most of the time, they're pretty commonly collected metrics, and we will score your nonprofit on impact. And that has just proven to be really powerful for those nonprofits with an impact score. They've really seen donations and traffic go up because here they've got a third-party verification. And if you're a small nonprofit, don't be afraid of this. This is actually in some ways better fit for your small nonprofit that's doing a pretty narrow program. We rate a lot of homeless shelters, we rate food banks of those sorts. And, most of the time, nonprofits are doing good work and are impactful.
I'm like unreasonably excited about this particular category. I've talked in several of my videos about how important it is to measure, an organization's value and worthiness of receiving support just by impact. There's so many ways, and we're talking about this, of course, to measure an organization's effectiveness and efficiency. But I just think impact is, at least for me, the top one. It's so critical. We all get into this business to do the work. And I know for me in the organization that I run, if I'm not making an impact, I want to know so that I can adjust things and tweak things. And what we know is that creating a positive social change it's like a science. You've got to try things and figure things out, and have a resource that can help you evaluate that for free. It is for free, right?
It is, yeah.
Is actually really, really, really valuable. So super cool. All
Yeah.
right.
I am very excited about our impact and results beacon. The next beacon is finance and accountability, which we're renaming to accountability and finance.
Okay.
And that is more the historical way that Charity Navigator has rated nonprofits, so a little bit more streamlined. We still think it's very important that you have good governance. We asked, do you have an independent board? Do you keep board minutes? Do you have a whistleblower policy? As well as some financial metrics that are just basic metrics of nonprofit financial health. And by and large, nonprofits who are high performers do quite well on this. And so we do think it's just a good metric of organizational health. The next area is leadership and adaptability. I think we all know that the leadership of an organization is so important. And this one just looks at very basic factors. We're actually kind of also at an early stage with this beacon where we ask you pretty basic things. Do you have a mission statement? Do you have a vision statement? Do you have a strategic plan? Do you invest in your leaders? And, can you show adaptability? I think many nonprofits have proven their adaptability over the last couple of years. And this is a good opportunity for you to show that to your donors in a visible way.
Yes, I love that. And I'm so happy that you all are looking at that. Are you willing to say a little bit more about what do you mean invest in your leaders?
It's pretty straightforward. We just ask, do you fund professional development for your leadership team and staff? So most organizations hopefully are saying yes to that. I think it's sort of a baseline practice that we just hope all nonprofits are investing in their staff. Coming from a nonprofit, you're only as good as your staff.
Yep.
And so this is a good way for a nonprofit to sort of validate that they are putting their staff first.
Yes, thank you for saying that. Another one of my soapboxes.
The last beacon is called cultural and community, and this has a couple of factors, and it's really about, are you creating a positive work environment in terms of organizational health? And we measure that through your DEI practices, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And also, we think it's really important that you are engaging with your beneficiaries and practicing good feedback practices. That's a really good proxy for quality of programs. So we ask basic questions about your equity practices and your feedback practices. And so we think together, when you roll all that up, it just gives a really holistic look at how effective the nonprofit is. And then also lets donors kind of pick and choose what their values are. Are they really interested in a particular impact? Then they can, dig into that. Are they really interested in your culture and community practices? They can dig into that. And so I just think it just allows nonprofits to shine. My baseline view is that most nonprofits are doing good work. And so we are just a way for you to highlight that.
Okay, so you're an organization and you're trying to get everything in order to have a great profile on Charity Navigator and be scored well and all that stuff. Let's talk about some of the logistics and the actual documents and things you need to prepare in order to get that good rating, in order to be prepared to have a really strong profile on Charity Navigator so that you can be building the public's trust. What are some of those things?
Yeah, so for many nonprofits, you're probably already rated on Charity Navigator and you don't even know it. So
check that out, everybody. Go look up your organization.
Yes, please do. The first way you get rated on our site is by filing your 990 electronically. So if you filed your 990 electronically for 3 years, you are already rated on our Accountability and Finance Beacon on Charity Navigator. So let me pause here because I think a lot of people who are new to the nonprofit world are just starting out. The 990 is this thing that they have to do. And I would really ask you to take care with your 990, especially with the check boxes and making sure that you've gone through that thoroughly and made sure, they ask you a lot of questions about best practices and then we pull those in, and that's how a lot of our ratings are. So I do say I get a lot of questions from nonprofits who say, oh, but I forgot to check that online. And I sort of say, okay, well, you can file an amended 990 and we're happy to adjust that when we get your amended 990. But take the care before you sign your name to make sure you're indicating all of the best practices you're doing. So you're probably already rated. All right. So then from there, you can earn more beacons. There are 2 ways to earn beacons. The first one is to log into our nonprofit portal, which is charitynavigator.org/portal. And when you log in, that will see what your score is going to be. And you can then complete and earn your leadership and adaptability beacon. I think it probably takes 20 minutes to complete the form. You'll need your mission statement, your vision statement, a quick summary of your strategic plan. And then there's a few kind of 100-word text boxes that you can fill out. There's a place for you to highlight some of your other practices. Another place is we do data sharing with Candid. And I don't know if you're going to talk to Candid, but they have a more extensive profile. And so if you have completed your Candid profile and earned a high level of transparency badge at Candid, we pull in 2 pieces of information that populates our culture and community beacon. And that is the How We Listen survey and the Equity Practices survey. So that's another place where you may not even know you've been scored at Charity Navigator because you've done a good job completing your Candid profile. And then the last thing is if you are eligible for impact and results score, which is not everyone is, it depends on the programs you run. Also through the nonprofit portal, you can submit those data points, and that's very specific to the program that you're running and get scored by. So I would say start with your 990, then log into our portal and see what you're eligible to complete, and then make sure you're also working with Candid to get your seals of transparency.
So, a lot of these are documents that if you have gotten your official IRS tax exempt status, you probably already have, like your mission statement, all that. Those are things that you have to have in order to get that exemption. But for organizations who are brand new and haven't even done their first 990 yet, are they going to show up on Charity Navigator?
You will. As soon as you have submitted a 990, you will show up. We just won't rate you. And the reason is mainly it's to look out for you. It might be unfair. You're still getting your feet. I can imagine your finances might be more volatile as you sort of establish yourself as a nonprofit. So we feel like we wouldn't be able to fairly rate you until you've had a couple of years under your belt. So that's why we have a 3-year requirement, but you're still findable on Charity Navigator. You can still earn the other beacons. And, for many, people can donate through our website to you. So there's still some value to, engaging with us, even if you are not eligible for a full score.
And I know, you said your organization is getting pulled into Charity Navigator from some of the existing documentation out there, and that even small organizations can update their profile. But just real quick point of clarification on that 990, because I know there are different kinds of 990s. What type of 990 gets pulled in there for these organizations?
Yeah, thank you so much for clarifying this. So to get rated, you need 3 e-filed full 990s. So not the 990 postcard or the easy. This is the full 990. Usually organizations at around 100,000, maybe a little bit more, is when they start filing a full 990. So if you're still filing a 990 postcard, unfortunately, that doesn't have all the information we need to rate you. So it is the full 990.
And is it true that even if they don't have that information, they can still fill in the other parts of the profile? Like the leadership part?
Yes, that is true. Yes.
Okay. Awesome. So you can still get started, even if you're just getting started out, you still haven't filed that the full 990 yet.
Yes, even smaller organizations who are filing the postcard can go out and fill their other beacons. You can still log into the portal. We just won't be able to give you that 0 to 4-star rating.
Okay, gotcha. So we've now talked about the various categories that you all use and the different things that you all consider when scoring a nonprofit on Charity Navigator. We've also talked about how your way of evaluating organizations has evolved and changed over the many years that you all have been doing this. And I also know that pretty soon here, I think within the next month, you all are going to evolve a little bit more. So what's going on? What can people expect when they go to the site? How will it change? And what is the rationale behind the evolutions?
It's such a great question and something we're really excited about. So historically, we really focused on finance and accountability as sort of the base of our ratings, and we called that the star rating system. In 2020, after a lot of work, we actually launched another system alongside it, which we called the Encompass rating system, which is that 4-beacon system that I talked about earlier. We've always known that there was so much more than finance and accountability. It just took us a while to figure out how to do that effectively and at scale. So we, over the last 2 years, have been kind of experimenting with that system and figuring out how it works and making sure we have everything right. And in the next couple of weeks, we're actually merging those two systems so that everybody will be under the same 4-beacon system. So this expanded the amount of nonprofits we could rate to 200,000. Before we only rated 9,000. And just, I think, really signals to the donors that there's so much more than finance. Just to jump in, a lot of people say that the one thing they look at is overhead. I would love it if donors stopped saying that. I want them to look at impact. I want them to look at leadership. I want them to look at so many other factors that might be the core to a nonprofit's effectiveness. So in this new system, the overhead has been de-emphasized, and we are emphasizing these other factors to sit alongside them. And that's something I'm really excited about. The other thing is, if you're a close watcher of Charity Navigator, you would see in the old system, we had a 0 to 100-point scale. And in the new system, you had the 4-star scale. And now we're merging those two scales. And what's exciting about that is that now the 4-star was just reserved for those big name charities. And now the small charities, the scrappy charities, the local charities can also claim to be 4-star, which is really what donors look for and know. So many exciting things that happen. I think it's going to really help small, nimble, highly impactful nonprofits be found, increase their donations. Our mission is actually make impactful giving easier for all, because we're pretty much invested in making sure that donor dollars go to the most impactful charities too.
I love that, because I think the big name charities, doing amazing work, lots of really great work being done, but it is true that those are the go-to organizations in a lot of donors' minds if they aren't aware of all of the other options that they have. And there are some grassroots organizations who are just on the ground in the neighborhoods, in the communities, and partnering with those communities really authentically that deserve the resources too. So I think that's super cool. And I also really like what you said about asking donors lovingly to look at more than just, the finance piece. I think this whole idea of program ratios and all that has just been in the the imagination and the minds of donors and would-be donors for so long that it's just not something we're used to thinking differently about. So I, for one, am excited to see the dialogue shift a little bit, hopefully.
And just to build on that, there's so many myths about how we rate overhead, and I just want to take a moment to dispel them. A lot of people think that less overhead means a better score on Charity Navigator. And that's just not how it works. We actually have a threshold of 70%. So as long as you are 70% programs, 30% overhead, which that is what 2/3 of nonprofits are, you get 100 out of 100 on that metric. So, it's people keep saying, oh, I need to have 0% overhead. And I just want to say, you don't. Most organizations, what they're doing, and the overhead, which we all know is really important for nonprofit functioning, you're probably just fine. And so we're trying to educate donors on that too.
Yeah, and overhead has become such a bad word, and I like to think of it as needed infrastructure. Like, you can't serve people if you can't turn on the lights.
I was having a conversation with a dear friend who sort of was telling me about their philosophy on the overhead myth. And I said, oh, that's interesting. When you buy a stock, are you trying to see if they have a lean accounting department?
Yep.
It made them think, and it's the same thing. We all need overhead to function properly. And frankly, overhead often leads to impactful organizations when everything's a balance,
Yeah. I remember some great research. I think it was Stanford Social Innovation Review came out like some years ago about how maybe it was just within habitat chapters. I know this is a little bit of a tangent, but let's go with it. About how, investing more in overhead actually was leading to more impacts. And I thought that was so interesting and such a great observation.
Yeah, I mean, it is a bell curve, right? If you are on the extreme ends, that should probably get a closer look. But most people are in the middle and, doing the right thing with the amount of resources that they need and the split between program and overhead. So again, we do approach nonprofits with the posture that most are trying to do their best. We just want to help donors find the ones that both align with their values and are following all the best practices.
Love it. So you did mention this a little bit before, but just as a recap, in case folks missed it, if your organization is not yet on Charity Navigator, or you need to update something related to your nonprofit's profile, how do you do it?
So the first is, I highly encourage you to visit our nonprofit portal, which is charitynavigator.org/portal. You can log in. It'll show you what your score is going to be by beacon. It'll show you the different data fields that you can enter to earn more beacons. And it would also give you a chance to update any other necessary information you need to do. And just to engage with us better, that's going to be your go-to place as we do more frequent updates. I also really encourage you to go to Candid and complete the How We Listen part of their profile, as well as the equity practices checklist. That will boost your score on Charity Navigator. And then finally, just pay attention to your 990. We do pull that directly from the IRS. And, just take a little care before you sign on the name that all of your best practices are being documented.
And folks, I will leave the links that we're talking about here in the description below the video, so you can check those out too if you need a little extra help finding them. Okay, Laura, so I feel like this is going to be very educational for folks. I know, like I said before, Charity Navigator gets a lot of eyes on it, and it's really a place you want your organization to be represented, and to be represented well as you're growing and starting to attract donors and volunteers and supporters. So just to kind of wrap things up here, what else do you think is important for nonprofit leaders or aspiring nonprofit leaders to know about what you all are doing?
The one thing I really want you all to know is that we are really trying to enhance discoverability on our site. We really want a smaller, high-performing nonprofit to be found. And so we're exploring a couple different ways to do that. We have what we call curated lists, which are either topical or issue related, where we put out the best nonprofits that we think are working in that area. It could be a disaster post-hurricane Ian list for people looking to support organizations after that horrible disaster, or it could be an issue specific, like best housing related nonprofits. And what we're doing is we are really trying to find the small local high performers in those areas, but we do want to make sure we've got complete information on those nonprofits so we can feel good that we're putting out a list that we feel like we can stand behind. So as part of that, we are making a requirement that you have to have at least 2 beacons completed. And so we hope that incentivizes all of you out there who, know you're doing great work, but want to be found on our website to really go in and complete those, your profiles and log into our portal, because that will help us make sure that we can highlight you on these lists. And our lists are where a lot of eyes on, particularly after, a disaster is coming up to the giving season.
I love that. That's so smart. I think of all those times people are Googling or searching like best disaster relief organizations to donate to. I mean, you're saying they'll basically end up on one of your lists.
Yeah, I mean, there's 200,000, so
right. Some will, but I'd honestly, I'd rather have someone land on one of your pages than a random media or blog page of someone who doesn't have all this research at their fingertips. So I love that.
Yeah, and some of the issues that we have are really localized. And so we want to be able to highlight the nonprofit who's really on the ground doing the work. Or, in our homelessness group of charity lists, we're finding some really great like homeless shelters, and they're very small organizations, but we're finding that they're really high performing, and we'll be able to highlight those. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited to help your nonprofit be found by a donor in your community who's excited to support your work.
And just to clarify, when you say small nonprofit, what does that mean to you all?
I usually think of small nonprofits as under $1 million. But we do have nonprofits that are $100,000. So that is how we define small. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Laura, for your time today. Folks, I hope that you learned a lot and are going to be able to put this information to good use. Go check out and see if your organization is on Charity Navigator. Go update your fields on your profile if they are not already updated, and put yourself in the best position possible, because I hope that you get some support. So thank you, Laura.
Thank you. It was great to be here.
All right, friends, what did you think? I will give you 30 seconds to go to Charity Navigator and type in your nonprofit name and see if it comes up. Or if you don't already have an organization or know of an organization, check something out on there. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm always interested to hear from you and have an interesting conversation. But also, they're just super cool, and I encourage you to go check out their website, check out their YouTube channel as well. I know they're going to be talking a lot about some of the rating stuff that they're doing there as well. As always, if you're looking for some extra support, I have those online trainings at foundertofulltime.com. I also have a newsletter that I do for nonprofit leaders and change makers. You can check out the link to subscribe to that in the description below. And one last thing, I have my Facebook group, Change the World or Bust. Gosh, I want to say almost 4,000 people in there now from all over the world, all trying to make an impact in their own way, like you. So come out and join us in that Facebook group, and we'll have a good discussion. That's all I have for you today. I hope that you enjoyed this and learned some helpful things as always, and I'll see you next time.